here's main panel. Okay, here's the example for our functions with markup. Our functions will insert the HTML markup. So the header panel is going to say illustrating markup, so remember that. And then you got to remember that the commas are what kill you with Shiny. So remember that you got to have commas between things, and then say for example no comma right there. So H1, I'm going to say H1 is the sidebar panel, and then there's got to be a comma there. H1 text, comma there, H2 text, comma there, H3 text, comma there, and so on. And so all of these things will render in the sidebar panel. The main panel, I've got three things: some main panel text, some code formatted as the code, and P, some ordinary text right there. Okay, so this is just a simple UI function that shows the rendering. So here's the illustrating markup statement. It rendered as H1, and then in the sidebar it rendered the sidebar panel labeled right there. There's my H1 text, my H2 text, my H3 text, my H4 text, my main panel text. Here's what it renders code like by default, and here's some ordinary text. Okay, and again, this is all squashed, right? The main, when you do this, you'll see that it looks different. There's a lot more white space over in that direction. Okay, I wanted to show an example of input. So remember, the header is going to say illustrating inputs. The sidebar panel, I'm going to put in a numeric input, and you'll see what I mean by that. It's a little box where you can enter in a numeric input. Here's the label, so it is exactly the HTML label. And then here's the printed label, numeric input labeled ID1. Here's the default value, the minimum and the maximum, and a step value, and you'll see what the step value does. And then here's a checkbox. It's labeled ID2. I put it in, I label it as called checkbox, and here's the different values that it can give. Here it is date input, and then the main panel I'm just going to leave blank in this example. And here's an example. Here's the example. When you run it, you'll see. So when you push this button, it's going to increase or decrease the numeric input as per the step size. And then here's the checkbox, right? Check it, and date. When you click that, it'll actually bring down a calendar that you can grab the date from. And then here, I wanted to show how you can grab the outputs. So here, and display the outputs. So here in as H3 text, I'm going to say illustrating output. H4, I'm going to say you entered, and then I'm going to say output ID1, output ID2, and output date. Okay, and so that's how I'm going to render the output. But notice I got to grab these OID1, OID2, and ODate variables. Where do those come from? Well, those come from your server function. And my server function just says, it takes in my input, which is my input ID1. So this is where it grabs the HTML labels, right? ID1, ID2, and date. And then here, render print is just saying the output is going to be formatted as printed text. So output OID1 is going to be printed, just reprinting the input ID, and so on. Okay? And here we go. So here, here you see. So here you can see it starts at default value 0. I could press up and down on that 0 to change the outputs over here. Whatever you check over here. So I check the two values, and you can see they come out over here as you entered 1 and 2. The 0 is you entered 0, and then I click the date, which I think was actually the date I was doing this, and it says you entered that date. Okay? Okay, and here it is actually live. So in my RStudio, I typed run app in the directory that contained this code. This code is in the GitHub repository, and you can see as I enter in numeric input, as I increase it to 5, it's changed to 5 over there. I check value 1, value 2, value 3, value 2, value 1. I can grab a new date. Okay, so that's just that's showing you how you can get from your inputs to the server, then back to the